Right, so day one of BMW E36 strip down and refresh. Got it in the garage yesterday. The E46 is now complete and outside. I still need a reflashed ECU for that to disable the traction control, and I've got to swap the racks over, but I bought the rack on it is knocking quite badly. I bought a purple tag rack with the intention of putting it in that car, but now I've got this. I would far prefer the purple tag rack goes in this, so I'll remove the rack from this to use in the 46, and then the purple tag rack can go in this when I rebuild it. So yeah, that's very close to being complete. This thing has been a complete curveball. I'm so happy I've got it. It's made it possible for me to be out in drift competition at the first round of whatever championship will accept me, as it's been so long since I've been out drifting. Yeah, so get this thing done as quickly as possible, get it tested, and get into every possible round of competition that I can do next year to start enjoying life again. It's been pretty depressing. I've been trying to get a drift car together since 2015, and various different situations with life have either meant I've had to abandon the project to sell it for the money for whatever purpose, or competition rules were regularly changing for a little while, so I built cars and then they became non-compliant due to subframe swaps and various other different parts of the regulations that changed. So yeah, it's been a funny few years, and this really sort of signifies the end of that for me. It does need a lot of love because it's sat outside for years. It hasn't been ran for maybe 2 years now, and like I said, it was a little bit sort of rushed together with parts we had laying around, but all the main components are absolutely brilliant. So with a tidy up, this car will be something quite competitive and sort of special, really. So anyway, let's start on with the strip down. Right, so I've made a fairly decent start with the strip down, and just thought I'd run through a few observations I've made and what the plans are from this point forwards. So yeah, I can criticise this as much as I like because I built most of this car, and yet there are parts that I'm not particularly proud of, but I will show you everything because it's the way these things work. The wiring loom is horrendous. To be fair, it was repurposed from my old MX-5, so it was never intended to be in this car. We were in a rush, and I basically ripped it out and chucked it in here with a couple of little fuse boxes. So the wiring loom definitely needs completely stripping down, and make a nice, tidy, full custom harness. That is the one of the most important and biggest jobs on the list, to be fair. Couple of other things I'm going to change straight away. The manifold, it's a Japspeed V2, I believe, the thicker one. They don't tend to crack, but they're prone for boost creep due to the wastegate position, or the way the wastegate pipework comes off the manifold. So what we did with that as a solution was blank the wastegate port off, and I literally hole sawed the side of the exhaust housing, welded the V-band attachment on the actual housing, and the wastegate comes directly off the side of the turbo. Now that's absolutely fine. I mean, it gives phenomenal boost control, really good boost control. But the problem is, if you're in competition and your turbo fails, you're in a situation where you can't really do anything about it. It's quite a big job to hole saw the housing, and obviously you need to, well, the way I did this, I heated it up in an oven, welded the pipework on, and then put it back in the oven and cooled it down gradually, because it's cast. So it's a bit of a pain to weld. It's not a normal sort of process. So if you needed to do that at a round of competition somewhere, you're kind of stuck. So I think what I'm going to do is upgrade to either a Speed Tech or a 6-boost manifold with the standard wastegate output, and change the turbo. I'll probably put a bigger one on here anyway. So the plan will be to have the engine built and run a lot of power. You know, probably max out the what I think the gearbox is capable of holding at peak, which I would say is probably sort of 700-800 brake horsepower. I've seen people run with the 330 D5 speed. I know that's pushing my luck, but they do last. So get a couple of spare gearboxes, bigger turbo, and for the time being, just I need to get this thing together and running. So for the time being, a bigger turbo at really low boost, keep it under 600 brake horsepower because it is a standard engine at the moment. Get some practice days done, and then either get another 1J long block to be built, or pull this one out and find somebody to do a decent forged build, because I need a lot of power. So yeah, like I said, as you can see, the wire and loom and just all the plumbing generally is messy, rushed. So it all needs to be addressed. But we've got some nice 1050 injectors in there. All the Celica VVT coil packs, they were all brand new, genuine coil packs. I'll need another wastegate. That wastegate is off of 2011. That was on my first ever 1JS13 build. So that is very, very old now. Saying that, it's been a brilliant wastegate. Never had any problems with it at all, and it's been on 4 cars now. It's a Precision 38mm. So I'll probably stick with Precision because it's been so good. But new wastegate, and probably a bigger one for the bigger turbo. Spec of that I'll have to figure out later on. It's generally a mess, but there's no rust, rot, nastiness anywhere to really sort of resolve. It is just all chip paint and dirt everywhere. It was taken to Norfolk Arena once, and that's what happens when you go to Norfolk Arena. You end up with shale absolutely everywhere. So down to a bare shell, pressure wash it, and then decide whether I'm going to have the shell blasted or just start sanding and painting. We've got the Grams Performance 044 pump and filter set up, and that's a twin pump and filter set up. They were both brand new when I built my MX-5. They were moved on to this. The fuel tank position, I think, well, it doesn't need to be in this box because I'm going to basically firewall behind the seats. That seems to be the most sensible option when it comes to separating the fuel system from the driver's compartment. Obviously the radiator can stay where it is, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'll use a Davis Craig electric water pump rather than the standard mechanical pump. I thought I had one already on it, but that was obviously a different car. This ducting setup that went to the back window, that's absolutely fine. Nitrous oxide, that needs to be plumbed in and need some spare bottles. I think I'll probably go for a slightly smaller fuel tank. I had one in the SLK that would probably be a better size. That can potentially stay in the same location but not in the box. And like I said, the firewall separating the driver's cabin. The bucket seat that came in this is it's an FIA seat, but it's a standard one. I need one with the side head restraints. So I've bought a Cobra bucket seat with the side head restraints, which was destined for the SLK. That can now go in this. But the good thing is the seat that was in this is a matching seat to the one I've got in my E36. So if I tidy it up, I've got a matching pair of bucket seats for that, and I'll use one of the harnesses out of this in there as well, because I'll want new harnesses in this. The brake setup was a bit of an odd one. Decided to have a play with, well, what people call suicide brakes. So the pedal is just connected to the front brakes and the hydro is connected to the rear brakes. Now I'm going to change that. I'm going to use a dual caliper setup on the back. So I've got a foot brake on the back as well. That was an experiment at the time that I never really got the opportunity to play with much. So that needs to be changed. The shifter kind of looks bent. I don't know how that's happened, but I'll replace that with a IRP shifter so I can lock the gears out. It's one thing I've noticed about these BMW gearboxes. They are phenomenally strong for a standard gearbox. They will take the power, and obviously you can get the adapter kits to run with the JZ, but they tend to shift. You go in fifth a lot, I'll put it that way. With the IRP shifter you can lock out fifth gear so you don't accidentally go in. So with an IRP shifter these boxes are a great thing. Like I said, I'll probably get a couple of spares because I'm going to be really testing the limits of the thing. So yeah, that's sort of my thought process to date really. Most parts are sort of practical for what I'm trying to achieve. The rear impact protection, I believe that's all to spec. I'll have to measure the diameter for UK comps. Like I said, the rad fine with a electric pump. That was a super expensive twin speed fan. I can't remember the brand, but that should do the job. Got the smaller tank, obviously got the twin fuel pump and filter set up. I'll clean all them out and make sure they're fresh. I might even replace the filter gauze in the filters because you can buy them. It's just rubber hose to the front of the car, but that is suitable. Like I say, it goes under the car and that'll be behind I'll leave that all in the exact same position. That'll be behind the firewall, so that'll be legal reg-wise. Yeah, tidy up this mess. I've got electric power steering. I've got a Mercedes A-Class pump, so I'll use that. Oil cooler is a sort of cheap, nasty thing, so I'll upgrade that with something a little bit better. It's got a nice little power steering cooler. Obviously I'll remove the LED light bars and use a pair of the headlight blanks that I make with the printed stickers. All the fiberglass is in fantastic condition, which is a relief because I absolutely hate fiberglass repairs. There's just a little bit of filler work on the back of that, but that's perfect. This is the only one I noticed that has a little crack in it. but that's not too serious. I can soon repair that. Oh, I just noticed another little crack in the rear. This rear has got a little, it's not actually it is all the way through. That needs a little repair, but again, no problem. The rear, I can print some of my headlight stickers to cover the rear lights so it looks a little bit more like a car and less like a fiberglass bathtub. And this one's absolutely fine. Both the side windows, they're polycarbonate, both of them are cracked. So I'll order some mackerel on and just use them as a template for to cut a new set. The rear polycarbonate screen is absolutely fine. I believe the side windows, the door windows, I believe they're both fine as well. They're both polycarbonate as well. That was a full plastic performance kit. I think that's their name. That came from a prop company anyway. So yeah, I can just use them as templates and remake the side ones. I will do away with the filler arrangement in the side window because that seemed to crack the polycarbonate. Maybe put a filler up to the bodywork somewhere, but yeah, I can figure that out when the time comes. So yeah, the cage is nice and tight. I built the cage. The only thing, I believe I'll probably put an X in the back rather than having just the one diagonal bar, and also bar between there and there, just because I can. And the only thing that really needs to be up to spec is any intrusion through to the turret at the front there. I believe the rest is all to spec. So yeah, it's all gusseted into the pillars. Gussets in the door bars. Yeah, so all the mounting plates are to spec. So yeah, that's not too much work either. This build should come together fairly sort of quickly. So the next stage is to move the car over a little bit so I've got some space the other side. Strip all the front down, and then I think get it on axle stands and start stripping all the suspension and everything off. So happy days, let's crack on. as I'm digging in a little bit further, I'm remembering some of the little bodges that happened along the way. Like I said, we put this thing together out of parts, some of the parts I had sort of laying around really. So we've got this braided line going into a rubber line with fittings that are not intended for that purpose, with two other kind of connectors that look like they've been welded together, that goes into a silicone hose that goes into the back of the head. So well, it worked, but these are the sort of things that definitely need to be addressed and correct parts bought, so it's tidier and more reliable as well. I mean, having all them joins is not ideal, and it doesn't look the prettiest thing in the world. But like I said, we literally put this thing together out of parts I had laying around in various boxes. Here's another one. So, power steering return, some kind of arrangement to go from one size pipe to another size pipe into the power steering cooler, and then from the back of the power steering cooler into the reservoir. So again, it worked, it didn't leak, but what a bodge. These water lines, I need to resolve that situation too. Again, nothing leaked, it all worked, but what a mess. So another thing I'm going to address whilst making improvements is the nitrous injection. It's just a single jet. There's no telling where the nitrous would go. Most of it will probably end up down cylinder 6. So I'm going to run a multi-jet system, one jet per port, so then at least the nitrous is going exactly where it's supposed to go. I'm going to replace all the sensors as well, the cam sensor, crank sensor. TPS was new anyway. Yeah, just give everything a bit of a refresh. The front of the engine, I'm going to run electric power steering. I'm going to run a Davis Craig electric water pump, so that way I can remove the tensioner, and it is literally just a 5-rib flex belt from the main pulley to a high output alternator. The other thing that's been done with this, which is a really nice upgrade for a JZ, a non-VVT, it has the VVT crank trigger sprocket. The cars just run so much better with the, I think it's a, don't quote me on this, I think it's a 32 but missing one tooth, or 31 but missing one tooth. It's got loads more teeth anyway, so it's a far superior timing setup than the standard one that doesn't have many sort of fingers, and also they tend to fail. The sensor ring is pressed onto the back of the pulley or sprocket, whatever you want to call it. The spot welds tend to crack, and then the ring spins freely on the back of the sprocket, so yeah, you have no timing. It's quite an awkward thing to diagnose as well, because you can't see it. So this sprocket came from a 2JZ non-turbo VVT, and they're single piece, so they're much stronger, more accurate timing, the cars start better, they run smoother. It's just a huge improvement for a very small amount of financial investment. The other thing I'm going to do is replace the front pulley. I'll probably get an ATI, or maybe even just a new standard front pulley, because the rubber tends to break down and they fail, so we don't want that, and that'll simplify the front of the engine beautifully. so much tidier with all the auxiliary stuff missing. Like I said, the only downside to that is the requirement for a high output alternator, but that thing looks old and crusty and would benefit a new item anyway. So yeah, and what I generally do is relocate the alternator from the hot side to the cold side. There's a little bit more space down there and it keeps it away from the turbo and the manifold. Yeah, I think that sort of covers that really. Let's carry on stripping everything down.
One eternity later.
So, manifolds off. That was hell. Jap Speed V2 thing. JZ guys out there. I'm going to buy my next manifold based on some strange criteria. Which one is easiest to fit? I hate struggling. It's all very pointless. I don't want a stainless manifold because they tend to crack. I prefer steam pipe style like Speedtech 6 Boost, or maybe one of those Artec things if they do one for a 1J, although the runner length doesn't look altogether equal. They look like they might be easy to fit. Recommendations. What manifold should I go for? Not another one of those. And that's what we did with that, just blanked off the wastegate tube, and like I said, I hole sawed that and put the wastegate on the side of the turbo. Another thing that happened during this little rip down, the catch can had about sort of 200 to 300 ml of water in it, which is a bit strange. I'm assuming that was just condensation. The car has sat for God only knows how long with just water in the radiator and the block and all the associated pipework. So this is what we have growing inside. Really hard, scaly kind of, I suppose, some form of oxidization because there's no coolant there to protect it. So the block needs a good flush. All the coolant lines, pipes, associated hoses, anything I'm going to use needs a good flush. Maybe I need a new radiator. I'm not sure. I haven't really investigated that far yet. And if anybody's got any ideas why I've got 200 or 300 millilitres of water in the catch can, like I said, I'm assuming condensation, but if anybody knows better, please let me know in the comments. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the cam covers, because I don't know if you can see in there, the front of that cam looks quite dry. Now there are BC264s in there, so I'm really hoping that there's no rust, because that would be bad. So I think under the circumstances with this, well, this car, I'll go back to that bit. This car was built, I checked on my Facebook memories this morning, 5.5 years ago. When it left here, it sat on the back of a recovery truck under a cover for maybe a couple of years, maybe even 3 years, and then the remainder of the time in a sort of unheated, normal domestic garage. So it has sat for a long time. The ECU was stolen about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, something like that. So it hasn't ran for quite a considerable amount of time. So I'm going to pull all the coil packs out, all the spark plugs out, fill it with a little bit of ATF and oil, turn it over by hand. Then I think I better compression test it just to double check that we're still good, because like I said, when we originally built this, we compression tested this engine and it was bang on. I mean, literally not even 1% out between the cylinders. Then I think I better turn it upside down after the engine is out, of course, because turning the car upside down with an engine in would be impossible. Put it on an engine stand, turn the engine upside down, flip the bottom end shells out and see what we've got there. If everything looks good, I think I'm going to put some new shells in, put it all back together again for now. because I really want to get this thing running. So that is the plan. But yeah, we're getting there with the strip down. It's not far from being able to come out. And how, I think it's just me being a messy bugger, but I have got fluid absolutely everywhere. How people do this without making a mess is beyond me. I have tried to be careful. So yeah, I'll have to rip all the floor tiles up when I'm done and mop everything up. But them tiles are great because if I need to lay down, I'm not laying in all that. It's below. So really good investment this flooring. Happy with that. Let's get some more of this torn down and investigate further. So that's as far as I can go with the engine strip down for today. I'm quite happy that the cams are in good looking condition because they're an expensive component and they were brand new. Made a bit of a mess in the valley, but at the end of the day there's plenty of fluid in the balls now. I'll leave that to sit overnight and then turn the engine over by hand. Once I'm happy that everything is free and it turns smoothly, I'll put the compression tester on there tomorrow and just compression test it again. And then it can come out, which will be nice because it'd be great to get this thing pressure washed and all cleaned up. It is an absolute state. So that is as far as I'm going to go for today. So if you watch the videos regularly and you enjoy the content, please subscribe. It would help me so much. I'm trying to get more reach with these videos and subscriptions really help that. So really appreciate that. We'll see you